Hello and welcome to our new video. This is the Karcher FC 5 cordless. We have reviewed it for you and you'll find out everything you need to know in this video. So just stay tuned. Let's get started with Karcher's FC 5. Before we get to the practical part, we'll first give you an overview of the product in our Features and Technology section. The FC 5 is a cleaning device that can be used on various hard floors, such as tiles, parquet, laminate, PVC, or vinyl. However, to avoid any nasty surprises, you should make sure that the floor is sealed and water-resistant. The device relies on a lithium-ion battery as its power source, which offers a fairly short run time of approximately 20 minutes. Nevertheless, the charging time of 4 hours is not too long compared to other devices, so you can quickly recharge the battery. The battery status can also be monitored via a 3-stage LED display. As far as the scope of delivery is concerned, the FC5 comes with some basic equipment without a lot of bells and whistles. The main focus is on the device itself, of course. It comes with a set of cleaning rollers and the 2 tanks, which are also included. Remo will show us exactly where to find all this later on. There's also the parking and cleaning station, a trial bottle of cleaning solution, the mandatory power adapter, and some paperwork on top as little goodies. When it comes to its features, we honestly have mixed feelings about the FC5. On the one hand, the device has no stand function. This means that the cleaner cannot stand on its own, and therefore has to be leaned against a wall or placed in its station if you want to take a break. On the other hand, the FC5 can at least perform a self-cleaning with the included station. We'll take a closer look at whether this works later in the video. By the way, you can find the link to the Karcher FC5 below the video in the description. And if the video was helpful, please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel. So, now I'm sitting here at the table with the FC5 hard floor cleaner and would like to clarify 2 important questions. The first question is, what can a hard floor cleaner do? Well, we definitely need to differentiate here. A hard floor cleaner is one thing. A wet and dry vacuum cleaner is the other. This is often confused. A wet and dry vacuum cleaner is designed to pick up coarse dirt. A hard floor cleaner, on the other hand, is more like an electric mop, which is used for less challenging messes. For example, in the fall and winter season, you come home, it was wet outside, you have mud sticking to your feet, and you just spread it all around your entrance area at home. Just open the cupboard and get the FC5, switch it on, go over it, and the hard floor cleaner picks it up. And the second question is, how does such a device actually work? Basically, hard floor cleaners all work in the same way, namely with a 2-tank system. The freshwater tank is simply removed from the front. You can then fill it up with fresh water, put the tank back into the appliance, click it into place, and start the appliance. Fresh water is now taken from the tank, fed down to the cleaning rollers, and the dirt is then simply picked up from the floor. The water and dirt are then fed into the dirty water tank. You can empty it in the sink or toilet when the tank is full. You put the tank back in, put the lid on, check if you need to refill your fresh water tank, and you can get back to work. Yes, that sounds pretty good and all. But does the system deliver what it promises? We took a very close look at this in our upcoming practical test. Well, let's see what this thing can do. Let's start with the first part of our practical test, namely the cleaning performance. We deliberately want to start with the test, which we also carried out with the wet and dry vacuum cleaners. Of course, we are aware that the FC5 ain't a wet and dry vacuum cleaner in the traditional sense, and will probably not pass this test. Nevertheless, we want to proceed in this way in order to test the limits of the FC5 and see how far you can go with the appliance. We'll start with level 1, dry and liquid dirt. On the right, we see cappuccino powder, and on the left, we have some sugar beads. As you can see, the powder is taken care of reasonably well after going over it once or twice. Larger pieces of dirt, such as the sugar beads on the other hand, are not picked up so easily. Instead, the roller flings the beads around the room. Some of them have even landed outside the scene, which isn't so nice, of course. Even a load of juice on the floor doesn't make it easy for the FC5. The appliance brings a lot of water to the rollers, which basically soaks the floor. The rollers are also so saturated that it is difficult to pick up large quantities of liquids. As a result, the juice and water mix is spread all over the room. It works to some extent, but it's not satisfactory. Level 1, failed. Let's now combine dry and liquid dirt and move on to level 2, viscous dirt. Yogurt, ketchup, and applesauce are a little more difficult to pick up. Surprisingly, however, the cleaning result is reasonably good here. You can see how the gap between the rollers is not cleaned sufficiently and a streak of dirt remains, but with 2 more strokes, this is more or less taken care of. The high water output is also problematic again. But in the end, after going over it a few times, it's generally okay. Level 2, partially clear. Now it gets interesting. Level 3, wet coarse dirt. Liquids with solid components. In our case, cornflakes with milk. This is a big challenge even for some wet and dry vacuum cleaners. A hard floor cleaner like the FC5 really reaches its limits here. It does pick up a bit, admittedly. But on the whole, the roller simply plucks it apart and spreads or smears it all over the floor. Even going over it several times doesn't really make it any better. As the FC5 has some degree of a vacuum effect behind the roller, at least a little bit ends up in the tank, and only small amounts builds up in front of the opening. In any case, the cover shows that there is only a few pieces in the left chamber. Nevertheless, the bottom line is that this appliance is simply not made for this kind of dirt. Level 3. Failed. Of course, we don't want to be unjust, and after this borderline experience, we will now adapt the test more closely to the target area of the FC5. This target area is clearly more geared towards everyday dirt, which is usually tackled with a mop and bucket. Let's start here with our first point: muddy prints. Remo had already described this situation earlier. Someone comes in with dirty shoes and leaves prints in the hallway, and as you can see, the FC5 is in its element here. 2 strokes, and that's it. Mud prints clear. Another everyday occurrence for us is dried up dirt. We have simulated this for you here with a ketchup stain that we left to dry. The result? If you go over it slowly, and if necessary, stay on the stain for a short time so that the roller can work, then it's done quickly. Dried in dirt, clear. And now for the king of everyday messes. Level 3, a bit of it all. A little bit of everything. So a little ketchup here, a little yogurt there, something powdery in between, a few cookie crumbs and some fluffy stuff. Especially with children, it can quickly look like this or something similar under the dining table. And as you can see, ketchup, yogurt, and also the powder are relatively easy to pick up in such small quantities. Larger cookie crumbs and some of the fluff, on the other hand, remain at least partially in place, so the bottom line is, level 3, partially clear. This test makes it clear that the FC5 is primarily an electric mop rather than a wet and dry vacuum cleaner. In any case, you should not expect the performance of such a device, which is supposed to turn mopping and vacuuming into a single task. Instead, you get what's promised, namely a hard floor cleaner, which can't save you from having to pre-vacuum, but at least combines a mop and bucket into one appliance. The same also applies to other surfaces, such as tiles. Most of it works, but larger crumbs and fluff are also a problem here. What can be said, however, is that the grout cleaning works much better than was the case with wet and dry vacuum cleaners. The roller lies directly on the floor, and it is therefore able to roll into the gaps. They get cleaned properly as a result, which of course makes mopping such floors much easier. And as a reminder, you can find the link to the Karcher FC5 below the video in the description. And if the video was helpful to you, please leave us a like and subscribe to our channel. The FC5 is one of the better appliances in terms of handling. Only the drive mechanism is a double-edged sword in our opinion. The appliance really pulls you forward. The advantage of this is that the appliance runs more smoothly as long as you guide it straight ahead. What's also interesting is that the floor is properly scrubbed if you pull the appliance back or hold it in one place. This is very useful for stubborn stains, as you can see from the dried ketchup stain. However, if you want to work around yourself and keep moving back and forth, the big disadvantage is that it can get tiresome over time, similar to a dog on a leash that you pull back against its will. Of course, this is not quite as nice. In general, however, the maneuverability of the device is great and can be moved easily despite its considerable weight of 4.4 kilograms. You can even let the device glide to the left and right away from the direction of the rollers. This enables a very smooth handling and makes steering the mop much easier. There are also no problems with the FC5 when it comes to its operation. It only has a single button for switching it on and off. Although we believe that 1 or 2 more functions could certainly be offered in this price range, we are basically still satisfied with the basic design. The FC5 positions itself among the somewhat louder appliances in our test at around 73 decibels. Getting under furniture is generally no problem with the FC5. The base of the appliance is only approximately 6 to 7 centimeters high, so it should normally fit under a couch or bed. What you should know, however, the fact that the base fits underneath does not mean that you can get underneath it completely. Above a certain angle of inclination, the rollers lift off and can no longer clean properly. For this reason, even with a relatively high-hanging cupboard, it can be problematic to reach the back of the wall. What is an issue with both hard floor cleaners and wet and dry vacuum cleaners is how far they can clean around the edges. Our test with cappuccino powder showed that the Karcher appliances are superior to wet and dry vacuum cleaners in this regard. Due to the system, Karcher's rollers reach right up to the wall and can therefore work right into the corner. As a result, the powder is mostly removed from the corner, and good results are achieved when cleaning the edges. The situation is different if we use something sticky like ketchup instead of cappuccino powder. The roller can work itself right into the corner, and after a few strokes, it is reasonably clean. But some ketchup residue is still visible in the end. You should also be careful not to get too close to the wall. If dirt has accumulated on the edge of the roller, it is often smeared on the wall. Nevertheless, we have a better result here than with the wet and dry vacuum cleaners, which generally don't even get that far. What is a bit annoying when working with the FC5 is that you have to empty the dirty water tank relatively often. You may have already noticed this when Remo took the tanks out of the appliance at the beginning of the video. The slim, fresh water tank holds 400 milliliters, and the much bigger dirty water tank is only supposed to hold 200 milliliters? Something's not quite right, is it? In fact, although the dirty water tank looks large, you can only go as far as the relatively low max line. The effective capacity is therefore much smaller than you would initially think. To put this into perspective, however, it must be said that the wet and dry vacuum cleaners we tested basically work in exactly the same way and place the max line relatively low down on the dirty water tank. It's just a shame that the FC5 doesn't have a float, and you have to monitor the fill level of the tank yourself. We also think that the maximum of 200 milliliters that we measured is pretty limiting. It should be a little more. To ensure that the FC5 can do its job for as long as possible, it is of course important to clean it regularly. This is particularly important for this type of appliance, as inadequate cleaning can also lead to odors and mold. The minimum you should therefore do is empty the dirty water tank after you have finished your work, preferably directly into the sink. If coarser components are floating in the tank, you can of course also tip the whole thing into the toilet. Then rinse the tank under running water and carefully clean the tank insert as well. You can also clean the rollers first before you tackle the dirty water tank. This at least works automatically to some extent via the self-cleaning function. Grab the cleaning station and place the appliance in it first. Don't worry, the station allows the FC5 to stand on its own, so you don't have to hold it during the cleaning process. Fill 200 milliliters of water into the cleaning station and let the appliance run for 60 seconds. It's a bit annoying that you can't inspect the rollers or simply remove the cover after cleaning, because the station is in the way. To continue, you first have to take the appliance out of the station and lean it against a wall. Now you can remove the rollers, but at the same time, you are faced with the challenge that the FC5 can no longer stand securely. It slides back and forth, so you have to be careful. That's not so nice, of course. If you take a closer look at the rollers, you can see that they have only been cleaned to a limited extent. Some dark discoloration is still clearly visible, but we do not see any coarse dirt in the roller at least. If you remove the cover of the base and take a look at the inside, it looks reasonably clean, at least in this area. On closer inspection, you can see that the cover has taken a bit of a beating, but otherwise it's fine. Either way, you shouldn't expect too much from the self-cleaning function, and it's better to clean the cover and the two rollers under running water. A lot of dirt can be squeezed out of the rollers in particular. If that's not enough, you can also put the rollers in the washing machine at 60 degrees Celsius. They then can be placed on the nubs provided on the cleaning station to dry. As far as the intake slot for the dirty water is concerned, the FC5 unfortunately does not come with any cleaning tools. Instead, you should help yourself. For example, with a long, soft brush. In any case, we would recommend not leaving this area completely uncleaned, as odors can easily form here. Finally, the inside of the base can be cleaned with a cloth. Let's come to the conclusion. The Karcher FC5 cordless is a hard floor cleaner from the mid-price segment that still has some room for improvement in terms of its cleaning performance. Yes, it's true. The device is not made for the really nasty coarse dirt, and that should be taken into account at this point. But even with moderate dirt, the FC5 reaches its limits a little too quickly for our taste. At least when you consider that we are already in the mid-price bracket here, a few cookie crumbs and fluff should no longer be a problem in our opinion. To be honest, we can hardly see any difference in terms of performance to its little brother, the FC3, which has performed similarly well, but is a whole lot cheaper. So our recommendation is clear. If you need top performance, then look for Karcher's FC7 or the Tenneco wet and dry vacuum cleaners. If you are more concerned with everyday and moderate soiling on the other hand, go for Karcher's FC3 instead. So we have tested this hard floor cleaner for you. If you have taken a liking to it, take a look at the description below. You'll find all the links there. Otherwise, just stay tuned. Our Endcard will provide a few interesting video suggestions for you.